Okay, I'm recording, but I'm also streaming, and I will continue my reading on tobacco cultural story, history, cultural history. That's it about tobacco. Let's keep going. Without further ado, let's keep going. Both Nicotiana rustica and Nicotiana tabacum are native only to the Americas, where mankind came across them about 18,000 years ago. The humans who first populated the American continent did not know tobacco and did not smoke. They were the Asiatic origin. They were of Asiatic origin, and after crossing the Bering Strait land bridge, they dispersed southwards through the continent in those areas where fauna and terrain most closely resembled that which they had left behind. They continued a nomadic existence. To the south, however, they cultivated vegetables, built cities, framed laws, and gained empires through conquest. Both nomads and settlers shared an ancestral knowledge of herbs, which they augmented with the new plants they encountered. Tobacco was one of these. The discovery itself was unremarkable in a list of finds that included much everyday consumables as potatoes, tomatoes, rubber, chocolate, and maize. Plant geneticists have established that tobacco's center of origin, for example, the meeting place between a species' genetic origin and the area in which it was first cultivated, is located in the Peruvian Ecuadorian Andes, I don't know. Estimates for its first date of cultivation range from 2000 3000 BC. Tobacco use then spread northwards, and by the time of Christopher Columbus's arrival in 1492, it had reached every corner of the American continent, including offshore islands such as Cuba. Quite how humans became interested in tobacco is unknown. Our ancestors were certainly open-minded about diet and probably adopted an eat it and find out approach. It is, however, certain that early Americans invented a new method of consumption for their herbal friend, smoking. That lungs had a dual function, could be used for stimulation in addition to respiration, is one of the American continent's most significant contributions to civilization. Human lungs have a giant area of absorbent tissue, every inch of which is serviced by at least 1,000 thread-like blood vessels, which carry oxygen. Sorry, excuse me. Carry oxygen and what else? Which carry oxygen, poisons, and inspiration from the heart to the brain. Their osmotic capacity is over 50 times that of the human palate or colon. Oh, let me just open the dictionary here, just to have it by myself. I got curious about the word here. I'd like to search about it. Colon.
Colon.
Colon. Colon. Okay, it's colon. Lower and bigger half of the bowels, in which water is removed from solid waste. Bowels.
Bowels.
Bowels. And what was the other word? Palate. Palate.
Palate. Palate.
Palate. Top part of the inside of your mouth. Palate. Colon. Smoking is the quickest way into the bloodstream, short of a hypodermic needle. Anthropologists have speculated as to how the discovery was made that smoke could be a source of pleasure as well as an irritant, and have postulated several proto-smokers along Promethean lines. A typical mise-en-scène of this cultural landmark involves an ancestor
Ancestor.
Ancestor striding through the ashes, just the US version. Striding through the ashes of a forest he has just burned down, when he trips and falls headfirst into a smoldering bush of Nicotiana rustica. Although injured, he is soothed by the burning herb and adopts the habit of inhaling upon recovery, just by mistake. It is more likely that the practice of smoking evolved from snuffing, for example, inhaling powdered tobacco through the nose. Snuffing tubes were among the most ancient tobacco-related artifacts discovered in the Americas, and the practice coexisted with smoking in South and Central America is nothing as a human habit was unique to the Americas, whose inhabitants seem to have considered the nose as a more versatile object than the bifurcated. Not sure.
Bifurcate. Bifurcate.
Bifurcate and
Bifurcate.
bifurcate. So then a bifurcated passage for air. They snuffed through their noses, smoked through their noses. Let's see that. Oh gosh. Oh my god. My glass of beer almost fell on the table. That's bad, man.
Nose.
Nose.
It's all nose. It's all nose. It smoked through their noses and even drank through their noses. It's tempting to imagine that the ever resourceful Americans, having conquered the nasal passages, nasal,
Nasal.
Nasal.
all the same, nasal passages, perceived their lungs as the next challenge. Smoking was only one of many tobacco habits in South America. Beginning at tobacco's center of origin around the Andes and tracing its progress north, the most striking features of early tobacco use are the variety of reasons employed to justify its consumption and the diversity of ways in which it was taken. Tobacco was sniffed, chewed, eaten, drunk, smeared over bodies, used in eye drops and enemas, and smoked. It was blown into warriors' faces before battle, over fields before planting, and over women prior to sex. It was offered. Man, I'm just exaggerating here sometimes. Offered. It was offered. It's
Offered price.
offered.
Offered price.
Offered price.
Price offered to the gods and accepted as their gift, and not least it served as a simple narcotic for daily use by men and women. Tobacco's popularity is in part explained by its basic nature as a drug. A small quantity of tobacco has a mild effect on its user, whereas in large doses it produces hallucinations, trances, and sometimes death. What? Didn't know about that. Really didn't know about that. Really didn't know could cause hallucinations. Many of the external applications of tobacco, such as fumigation of crops and virgins, were justified on practical grounds. Tobacco is a powerful insecticide, and blowing smoke over seed corn or fruit trees was an effective method of pest control. Some South American tribes also applied tobacco juice directly to the skin to kill lice and other parasites. These real qualities were embellished with mythical properties so that tobacco came to be associated with cleansing and fertility, hence its application to maidens on their wedding night. As a result of its use in the planting season, tobacco became linked with initiation and was adopted by many tribes as a symbol of the rites of passage between puberty and adulthood. For example, the Tucano of the northwest Amazon would give tobacco snuff to adolescent boys before they were presented formally to the sacred trumpets as newly initiated men. It is fascinating to note that even in ancient, can I say that? Can I say ancient in British? Ancient.
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 Okay. Ancient civilizations, tobacco was considered to be something that youth should aspire to use. It was part of being grown up, and children yearned for the day when they would be treated like adults and be allowed to smoke. Perhaps the most important use of tobacco in South American societies was as a medicine. Its mild
Analgesic.
Analgesic.
analgesic, analgesic and antiseptic properties rendered it ideal for treatment of minor. The next is, man. Are you real?
minor,
Minor.
Minor ailments such as toothache when its leaves would be packed around the affected tooth, or wounds when leaves or tobacco juice will be applied to the area. It was further believed to be an effective remedy for snake bites and, by extension, a charm to ward off snakes. In addition to healing such straightforward ailments, tobacco was employed to cure serious illnesses and to comprehend its perceived virtues as a cure for fever or cancer. It is necessary to examine the South American Indian conception of disease. They believed that diseases were caused by supernatural forces in one of two manners. These were either intrusion, a form of possession whereby an evil spirit or object had entered the my body,
body,
and here,
body,
body, body, body, enter the body, body of the sufferer, sufferer,
sufferer,
sufferer,
sufferer,
sufferer, sufferer, the sufferer. Making them ill, or soul loss, whereby the sufferer's soul was believed to be drawn away, and or to have wandered off into riches of the supernatural world, often into the land of the dead, in order to be capable of curing diseases defined in these terms. South American witch doctors or shamans, shaman. They say shaman, right?
shaman,
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 shaman, shaman, shaman. Underwent a rigorous spiritual training to enable them to undertake vision quests, in the course of which they might identify the cause of the disease and either eject the evil intruder or retrieve the wandering soul, and thus restore the sufferer to health. Tobacco played a central role in the spiritual training of shamans. In the right doses, tobacco is a dangerously powerful drug and a fatal poison. Shamans use tobacco often in conjunction with other narcotics to achieve a state of near death, in the belief that he who overcomes death by healing himself is capable of curing and revitalizing others. Shamans undergoing initiation training were required to take enough tobacco to bring them to the edge of the grave. The spiritual journeys undertaken by initiate shamans were perceived as real quests, during the course of which the neophyte would encounter terrible hazards. The priest shaman of the Waro, for example, endured a series of perils similar to those set out in computer games. After clearing an abyss filled with hungry jaguars, snapping alligators, and frenzied sharks, or eager to devour him. Tobacco intoxicated neophyte. What is this word all about?
Neophyte.
Neophyte.
Someone who has recently become involved in activity and is still learning about it. Student, kind of neophyte, yeah. Had to pass places where demons armed with spears are waiting to kill him, where slippery spots threaten to unbalance, and where giant raptors claw him. Finally, he must pass through a hole in an enormous tree with rapidly opening and closing doors. These simply gates nope. No words like that here. Okay. The simply gates are the actual threshold between life and death. Jumping through the clashing doors, he beholds the bones of those who went before him but failed to clear the gateway. Not finding his own bones among them, he returns from the other world, restored to new life. New life. Tobacco shaman used the weed in almost every aspect of his art. Tobacco smoke was employed as a diagnostic tool to examine sick patients and formed a part of many ceremonies over which these doctor priests officiated. Ritual smoke blowing, by which a shaman might bestow a blessing or protection against enemies both real and invisible, was intended to symbolize a transformation in which the tobacco smoke represented a guiding spirit, and thus is reminiscent.
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 Reminiscent, and thus is reminiscent of Christian ritual, whereby wine and bread are transubstantiated by a priest into the body and blood.
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 All the same. Blood of Christ in himself. Shamans therefore were early proponents of passive smoking, which they believed to be a force for good for non-smokers. Turning to the methods by which tobacco was consumed in South America, the astonishing diversity of tobacco habits reflects not only the multitudinous
multitudinous,
multitudinous
multitudinous,
multitudinous 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 purposes it served, but Also the different climatic conditions in which the weed was employed. For instance, it was hard to smoke in the thin, dry air of the ants, so its nothing tended to prevail. Similarly, in the swamplands of the Amazon, where fires could not be kindled readily, kindled, kindled,
Kindle.
Kindle.
kindled, to cause fire to start burning by lighting paper wood, etc. Kindled readily, tobacco was taken as a drink. Different methods of tobacco consumption often existed side by side. One form for everyday use, another for magic, or ritual. Can I say magic or magic?
Magic.
Magic. Magic.
Magic. Magic. Yeah. Probably the oldest way of taking the weed, and the most straightforward, was chewing it. Cured tobacco leaves were mixed with salt or ashes, formed into pellets or rolls, then tucked into the user's cheek or under a lip. The juices were released, then dissolved in saliva and slid down the masticator's throat. Tobacco chewing could be recreational or magical. The next method of consumption, in terms of complexity and pedigree, was drinking tobacco in a sort of tea. Tobacco leaves were boiled or steeped in water, and the resulting brew drunk via the nose, via the nose,
Via.
Via.
or via the nose or mouth. This was a popular method of consumption among shamans, as the strength of the brew could not be adjusted to deliver the massive doses they preferred. Provenance. Yeah, I'm sure, almost sure. Place of origin.
Provenance.
Provenance.
Yeah, provenance. Provenance of the tobacco used in make tea was a matter of great importance. For instance, a cacao man will travel to a special stream to collect mountain spirit tobacco, which was steeped in the water of the stream to enhance, can I say, enhance, yeah,
Enhance.
Enhance.
enhance, nice, enhance its potency. Drinking tobacco also presented the opportunity of mixing the other narcotics into the brew. Novice shamans would sometimes add a dash of the fluids they collected from the dead shaman, and a qualified shaman's tea was often loaded with other hallucinogenic plant extracts. Extracts. Can I say extracts? Maybe not.
Extract.
Extract.
Yeah, why not? Tobacco was drunk in sufficient quantities at shamanic initiation ceremonies to induce vomiting, paralysis, and occasionally death. Even everyday tobacco drinkers attributed mystic powers to their brew, yeah. Hunters of the Mashko tribe drank to communicate with the game animals that they just wished to kill. Hunters in some tribes would apply tobacco juice as eye drops in order to help them see in the dark. In several cases, this privilege was extended to their hunting dogs. Tobacco tea was also drunk via the anus, where it was introduced in a form of a cluster using a hollow length of cane or bone, or with a bulb made out of animal skin and a bone or reed nozzle. What is a nozzle?
Nozzle.
Nozzle.
A narrow piece attached to the end of a tube so that the liquid or the air that comes out can be directed in a particular way. Nozzle. An early example of such a device dating from AD 500 AD has been discovered in the tomb of a Colombian shaman. Tobacco enemas were used for both medicinal
Medicinal.
Medicinal.
Okay. Medicinal and spiritual purposes. The Aguarana tribe, for example, employed enemas.
Enema. Enema.
Enemas to protect apprentice shamans from war jaguars during initiation ceremonies. A further variant of tobacco drinking, tobacco licking, was popular among some South American civilizations. This form of consumption involved boiling down tobacco tea into a syrup or a jelly known as amber. Sometimes alkaline salts were added, and the syrup thickened with manioc starch. What? I don't know what is manioc. I don't know what is starch.
starch,
Starch.
A white substance that exists in large amounts in potatoes, and in particular grains such as rice. Manioc. What about manioc?
Manioc.
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 Cassava. It's like a plant. Yeah. Amber was used by dipping a stick or finger into the jelly and rubbing it over the gums. It was often carried in a little pot on a string around its devotee's neck. Far more widespread than tobacco licking and uniquely American was tobacco sniffing. Snuff was prepared by drying, toasting, then pulverizing cured tobacco leaves, and the resultant powder was blended, then stored in calabashes or bottle gourds. Gourds. Gourds.
Gourd.
Gourd.
Good.
Good. A large fruit that has a hard shell and cannot be eaten, or the shell of this fruit used as a container. Other plants were often snuffed in conjunction with tobacco, especially coca. In the days before paper currency, insufflators, snuffing machines, were created in a variety of shapes. The most simple of these consisted of a hollow reed or bone, which was inserted into an angle a single nostril. An equally common design was Y-shaped, which enabled the snuffer to accelerate the charge by blowing down one tube with the other up one nostril, or to take both barrels at once. Some tribes blew snuff up one another's noses using elongated insufflators to speed up the snuff's narcotic effect. Snuffing was the preferred method of tobacco consumption of the Incas, whose remarkable civilization, governed by semi-divine rulers along communist lines and distinguished by an impressive road-building program, was exterminated by the Spaniards in the 16th century. Tough. The most common form of tobacco consumption in South America was smoking, usually using cigars or a simple form of cigarette consisting in cured strips of tobacco wrapped in musa leaves or corn husks. The act of smoking was not merely a method of tobacco consumption, but an integral part of the ritual. Shamans used tobacco smoke for healing and blessing, and also as a form of food to nourish their guiding spirits. Shamans believed that they entered into a contract with the spirit world upon initiation, whereby they undertook to provide sustenance to the spirits in the form of tobacco in return for receiving healing and power and other powers. Spirits that had taken up residence within the shaman's body were nourished by the tobacco he himself used, whereas those living in crystals or other sacred objects had smoke blown over them. For example, the shaman of the Kampa tribe owned a sacred rock in which he would smoke over and feed daily with tobacco juice. That could be it for now. 45 minutes of writing, or actually of reading. So that's a good amount of time to read something. I really enjoy this book here. I want to know more about subject. Is a subject that interests me, so I'm gonna keep reading, maybe doing some videos too to practice my British accent also. So that's it. I'm going to finish here my recording video, and bye bye recording video.